Thank you. David May. David, are you here? David May?
Oh, that's me.
Are they here?
Do any or all of the candidates support any form of term limits for your limited terms in Congress? Something like a maximum of 12 years continuous service, whether it be in the House of Representatives or in the Senate or a combination thereof.
I would think that probably most of us do, but I have a different proposal that I think is just as important. I think that one of the things that would really help us out is what if we limited the amount of time that your current representative could spend in Washington, D.C.? What if we set the limit that they can only be there so many weeks a year, and the rest of the time they have to spend within their district? That we have email, we have the internet, all the communication would be so much easier. They could sit right here in Chillicothe or wherever it would be and do business, the people's business here. The temptations that must be in Washington, D.C., I can't even imagine what they must be like, because we've all seen good people go to Washington, D.C. and be poisoned. And I think the fact is they hang around each other too much, they run in the same circles, they scratch each other's back. Those guys on the Senate are fighting for our very rights, and yet they're buddy slapping each other on the back on the floor of the Senate. I don't know about you, I think it's a war. Let's get those guys away from each other a little bit, where we can control a little bit of spending and have better control now.
I would support 12-year term limits. I think that makes a lot of sense. And of course, in Ohio, we have 8-year term limits, and I think that's probably a little short. Another concept that can be done too is term limit the amount of time that the leadership in members of Congress can be speaker and in the case of Ohio, President of the Senate, and committee members, committee chairman, because they have an unordinary amount of power. Because they can kill a bill, like Ron said, never got through Rules Committee, because who controls the Rules Committee? Leadership does. Obviously, members elect leadership, but they have a lot of power because they can also amass a lot of campaign funds. And so the ultimate is to have voters do the right thing. And I think this year voters will do the right thing. But 12-year term limits makes more sense than we have in Ohio 8.
I support term limits. I think it's I think it's very important that folks we make it a citizen Congress instead of a career Congress. But what Bob was saying about term limits on leadership, that would be huge. The amount of power that's just amassed by these folks in leadership. There are times when I didn't feel like a duly elected representative to my district because the speaker had all the power and took it away from the members. And we certainly on the federal level and as well as on the state level should have term limits in place on leadership. Also, to touch on something the coach said, when he mentioned that. What was my mind when he mentioned that one? There was a really good point there I want to make, but my time's up, unfortunately.
I would support some term limits. I believe 2 years, 2 terms for a senator would be enough. We limit the president to 2 terms. I would limit congressional people to 3 terms, which would be 6 years. And I personally would limit myself to 6 years because I'm tired of seeing career politicians running our government. We need to get the House of Representatives back to the people so that we put average people from all walks of life, not just lawyers, but there should be doctors, teachers, construction workers, business people in Washington. Then that way we would keep the federal government grounded to the people. And I believe that that's what our forefathers were trying to do when they set it up.
I support the citizen legislature, and I supported term limits when we had it at the State House. I saw some good people swept out, but I also saw the system gamed. And if you watch close, you'll see that it gets gamed all the time. They flip from one to the other, from state representative to state senator and back again. And so they even talk about it at some of the parties that they have. The most important term limit, I think, the limitation we should have is I didn't think it was The key thing is we need to exercise our right to determine who's going to be our representative or not. And if they're like Zach Space and they won't show up, and he wouldn't show up, he wouldn't debate us the whole time that we campaigned against it, then the people ought to say, let's get rid of it. Let's get somebody that truly represents us, and the ballot box is the best way to do that.
I feel that term limits is kind of a tricky question. We're hearing a lot of different years, 6, 4, 12. First thing, I think that, campaign finance would help limit terms, because right now every representative's term is limited because we are supposed to hold the power to vote, but the problem is they amass this enormous amount of money, and it becomes very, very difficult for them to be defeated. And so if there was some form of common sense campaign finance, that could be an answer, but I do believe that I would support another form of term limits. I think it needs to be long enough that you can get something done. I think if you're there 4 or 6 years, it would be hard. If you really had big goals and you really wanted to change. Right now, we need major change in our country. We need to restore the Constitution. And that's not going to happen overnight. See, things are supposed to, the way they designed this government was for things to happen painfully and slowly. Not fast and by the seat of your pants and out of control like it's happening right now. And so if there were term limits, I think that something like 12 years would be wise. But we're supposed to have that ability right now just by voting.
Well, I'm going to give you a different answer because I'm actually opposed to term limits, and here's why. First and foremost, you, the voters, have that ability every time you go to the ballot box. I've been endorsed by Liberty Committee. You might know them. They have MoveOutCongress.com and the pink slips. You have the ability to fire your member of Congress every 2 years. You shouldn't limit your power and authority, which is what a term limit does. Number 2, it empowers staffers. The staffers become the institutional memory. They're the ones who know how the system works, and they are unaccountable to you. It is worse on a federal level than it is on a state level. I left D.C. 20 years ago to come back to Ohio and raise my kids. There are staffers, congressional staffers, who are still there. You don't want me to go to Washington, D.C. and have the person who's deciding what's going on with your legislation having never set foot in the 18th district. And term limits limit your candidates. Because when you say you need to walk away from your job for X number of years, how many in this room can walk away from their job that many years and not have that be a problem? I can tell you in my field, I get clients by referral. So to walk away for a set period of time is going to cause me loss in business. So you're going to limit the number of people who are running for office. But there's real-life solutions to get the exact same result. Number 1, limit the terms of committee chairmanship. And number 2, limit the amount of money where it's coming from. If 100% of your votes come from within a district, at least 51% of your money needs to come from the district so your representative listens to you first.